The first thing I heard was the beeping. Too fast, too loud, like a metronome having a panic attack. Cold gnawed into my back from the gurney. My mouth tasted like metal and cotton. When I tried to move my leg, white-hot pain exploded from my knee and shot up my spine. "Easy, Lieutenant Reyes," a voice said above me. "You're in the ER." Harsh fluorescent light burned my eyes when I blinked. The smell of antiseptic and something sour, sweat, fear, wrapped around me like a second skin. I turned my head. Monitors glowed green and blue. My knee was a swollen, angry mountain under stained bandages. Angry red streaks crawled up my thigh. "What happened?" I managed. My voice sounded slurred. A doctor in blue scrubs leaned into view. Her badge blurred, but I caught ER, Dr. Kim. "You had a post-op infection after your knee surgery," she said. "It spread fast. You're septic. We've hit you with antibiotics and fluids, but it's not responding the way we need." My teeth started to chatter, even though my skin felt like it was on fire. "We may have to operate immediately," she continued. "Possibly amputate above the knee to stop the infection." The word amputate sliced the air. I swallowed hard. "Okay," I said. "Then do it." Dr. Kim shook her head. "Your fever's spiking," she said. "You're disoriented. Legally, that makes your capacity questionable for a decision this big. We've been trying to reach your parents, your listed proxies, for consent." She glanced at the nurse. "How many times now?" she asked. "6, the nurse said, tapping the chart. 4 calls each, 2 voicemails, no answer. Social worker tried both numbers too." The ER felt suddenly smaller, the beeping louder. My phone," I said. The nurse handed it over, case sticky with hand sanitizer. My hands shook as I pulled up my father's number. "Dad." I hit call. The ring felt endless. 1, 2, 3, 4. He picked up on the 5th. "Yeah?" he said. Background noise, clinking dishes, a TV, the murmur of conversation. "Dad?" I whispered. "It's Hannah. I'm in the ER. Something went wrong with my knee. They might have to take my leg. They need a consent." He cut me off. "Can this wait?" he said. "I'm busy." It wasn't angry. It wasn't panicked. Just annoyed, like I'd interrupted a meeting. The beeping in my ear merged with the monitor above me. My mouth went dry. "No," I said. "They need—" "You're always so dramatic," he snapped. "It was a simple surgery. Talk to your doctors. We'll call later. I'm in the middle of something." The line clicked dead. The phone screen glowed back at me. Call ended. My chest felt hollow and heavy all at once. "Lieutenant?" Dr. Kim's voice came from somewhere to my left. "Did he agree to come?" I stared at the phone. "He said he's busy," I said. The nurse swore under her breath, too quiet to be professional. The air smelled suddenly sharper, like disinfectant and anger. "Any other legal proxies?" Dr. Kim asked. "Anyone you trust?" My mind scrambled. My mother would be with my father, smiling for some charity luncheon, telling someone how proud she was of her Navy daughter while ignoring my texts. My brother hadn't spoken to me in a year, ever since I wouldn't co-sign a loan. Somewhere behind all that, flickering like a porch light left on too long, was another number. One I'd never listed on any form, because I assumed I'd never need it. "Grandpa," I whispered. "My grandfather, Arthur Reyes. He's not on the paperwork." Dr. Kim's eyes held mine. "Do you want us to call him?" she asked. A wave of dizziness rolled over me. The room tilted, monitors smearing into streaks of light. "Yes," I said. "He'll answer."
The nurse scribbled the name, reached for the phone. As my vision tunneled, the last thing I heard was the phone ringing on speaker. Then a tired, steady voice cutting through the static. "Arthur Reyes." "This is Dr. Kim at County General," she said. "We have your granddaughter, Lieutenant Hannah Reyes, in the ER. She's very sick."
We may need to make urgent decisions. I slipped under again before I heard the rest. The beeping followed me into the dark. Before the monitors and the beeping and the word amputate, there had been a different kind of noise. Applause. Years of it. Honor roll ceremonies, debate trophies, scholarship announcements. "If you're not the best, why bother?" my mother used to say, her perfume leaving a citrus-sharp trail in every auditorium we ever sat in. Our house smelled like bleach, new leather, and pressure. "You're a Reyes," my father would add, his voice smooth, his hand heavy on my shoulder. "We don't embarrass ourselves. We don't show weakness." When I told them I'd accepted an appointment to Navy ROTC instead of the Ivy League offer they wanted, the silence around the dinner table felt heavier than any speech. My mother's fork clinked against her plate. "The military," she said finally. "You're throwing away your potential to march around on boats?" "Ships," I corrected automatically. "Communications, languages, intel, it's not—" My father held up a hand. "If you want to play soldier, fine," he said. "Just don't expect us to applaud you when you break yourself doing it." They still bragged, of course, at parties. "Oh, Hannah?" my mother would say lightly, swirling her wine. "She's in the Navy. Overseas somewhere. Serving the country and all that. We're so proud." They never asked what those deployments felt like. They never saw me in a cramped comms room at 0200, headset digging into my skull, screens glowing green and blue, ship humming under my boots. They never smelled the stale coffee, the burnt dust and the equipment, the recycled air. They didn't see the knee injury either. I'd pushed a little too hard in training, on a run I should have stopped. Felt the tear, wrapped it, kept going. That's what good daughters did. That's what good officers did. Years later, the Navy doctor showed me the MRI. "Arthroscopic repair," he said. "Quick in and out. You'll be on crutches a bit, but you'll be back." I nodded like I wasn't already planning to schedule it between deployment cycles. Like one more scar didn't matter. The surgery itself felt easy. Bright lights, cold OR air, metallic and clean. The weightless drift as anesthesia pulled me under. I woke up groggy in recovery, knee-heavy but manageable, the air smelling like plastic and faint latex. The nurse sent me home to my off-base apartment with a prescription and instructions. Keep it clean, keep it elevated, call if something seems off. "Any family nearby?" she'd asked. "My parents are 3 hours away," I said. "They're busy." "Friends?" she pressed. I hesitated. My team was gearing up for another exercise. Everyone had their own load. "I'll be fine," I lied. "I'm used to taking care of myself." The apartment was quiet when I hobbled in, crutches clicking on the cheap laminate. The air smelled like yesterday's coffee and the faint lemon cleaner I'd used before the surgery, trying to leave things neat. I propped my leg on pillows, checked my phone. A text from Mom. "Send a pic in uniform when you're better. Aunt Lila wants to see." No. "How are you?" No. "Do you need anything?" I sent a thumbs-up emoji and thunked my head back against the couch. By midnight, my knee throbbed like it had its own heartbeat. By morning, the skin was hot, stretched, shiny. Touching it felt like pressing on a stove. I told myself it was normal. I took my meds on schedule. I cleaned the edges of the bandage, hands smelling like alcohol swabs. I turned the fan on to stop the room from spinning.
Needing help is weakness, my father's voice said in my head. Reyes, don't whine. By afternoon, I was shaking. Sweat soaked my t-shirt. My teeth chattered as if I were standing on an ice floe instead of my own living room. I tried to stand. The room tilted. Crutches skidded. Pain detonated in my leg, white and blinding. The apartment floor rushed up and knocked the air from my lungs. For a second,
I just lay there, tasting dust and old coffee. This is ridiculous, I thought. It's just a surgery. You've been through worse. Get up. I rolled onto my side, fingers scrabbling for my phone. The screen swam. 911. The operator's voice was calm and detached, like I was a glitch in a system she worked every day. Emergency services, what's your location? By the time the paramedics arrived, the room smelled like fear and sweat and something sickly sweet from the wound. Pulse is racing, one of them said, fingers on my wrist. Fever's through the roof. Let's go, Lieutenant, the other joked gently, trying to keep me awake as they strapped me onto the stretcher. Up and at 'em. The ride to the hospital blurred into lights and sirens and the sticky taste of oxygen. I fell back into the beeping. The next time I surfaced, it was to the sound of my grandfather's boots. They squeaked faintly on the hospital tile outside my curtain, a rhythm I knew from holidays and awkward birthday visits. The smell of his aftershave, cheap, clean, a little like pine, cut through the antiseptic. Grandpa? I croaked. The curtain swished. Arthur Reyes stepped in, older, thinner, flannel shirt wrinkled, gray hair more stubborn than I remembered. His eyes, though, were the same. Dark, steady, kind. Hey, kiddo, he said softly. You look like hell. His voice shook just enough to give him away. What are you doing here? I asked. He glanced at Dr. Kim, who stood at the foot of the bed, chart in hand. They called, he said. You gave them my number. Doctor says you've got a nasty bug that won't quit. He squeezed my hand. His palm was warm, rough with calluses long retired. Your folks weren't answering, he said, so I drove. How far? I asked. He shrugged. Couple 100 miles, he said. Little nap in the parking lot. Don't tell the nurses. Dr. Kim cleared her throat gently. Lieutenant Reyes, she said, your infection's progressing. Fast. We need to make a decision about surgery. Your grandfather is prepared to act as your emergency proxy, with your consent. She met my eyes. You understand what that could mean, she added. You might wake up with less of your leg than you remember. The monitors beeped steadily now, angry green lines on a dark background. I looked at my grandfather. He looked back, gaze steady, no flinching. Do you trust me, Hannah? He asked quietly. Something in my chest crumpled. Yes, I whispered. I do. Then let us do what we have to, Dr. Kim said. We'll fight for as much as we can keep, but we need the freedom to fight. The edges of my vision fuzzed. The room smelled like alcohol, sweat, and the faint hint of coffee on my grandfather's breath. Okay, I said. Do it. As they wheeled me toward the OR, I heard papers rustling, pens scratching, my grandfather's low voice reciting his name and relationship. Do you have any other family you want us to update? A nurse asked him. He hesitated. Let's get her through this first, he said. We'll see who deserves that call after. I let the sound of his voice carry me under. Coming back felt like swimming up through mud. Voices blurred, lights stabbed. The smell of antiseptic thickened the air. I tried to move my leg. It didn't move. Pain radiated from nothing. A band of fire where something used to be. Panic jolted me fully awake. My hand shot down. Gauze, tape, air. Where my right knee should have been, there was a stump wrapped in thick bandages, ending mid-thigh. A strangled sound clawed out of my throat. "Hey, hey," someone said, close. "Easy, Hannah. Easy." Hands, not gloved, not clinical, closed around mine. I looked up. Grandpa sat in a stiff hospital chair beside the bed, flannel shirt rumpled, eyes bloodshot. He smelled like old coffee and the faint sweat of someone who'd worried in one spot for too long. "You took it," I whispered. "My leg. They took my leg." He swallowed hard, but didn't look away. "They took what they had to," he said. It was spreading, fast. The doc said another few hours, and we'd be talking about more than a leg. I stared at the white mound under the blanket where my knee used to be. My throat burned. "Why?" I rasped. "Why didn't they just wait? Call my parents?" He glanced at the side table. On it sat a thick paper packet with a plastic binder clip. "Medical records, Reyes, Hannah. We'll talk about that," he said, "when you're stronger." He squeezed my hand. "Right now, you're here," he said. "You're breathing. They got the infection. You're not going anywhere." I listened. Under the beeping monitors, I could hear the soft whoosh of oxygen, the distant wheels of carts in the hallway, the murmur of nurses trading shift notes. My parents' voices were nowhere. "How long?" I asked. "Since surgery," he said. "About 18 hours. Since you came in, couple days." "Have they called?" I forced out. He didn't answer right away. The silence told me more than words. I turned my head toward the window. The glass was streaked with rain. The world outside looked washed out, parking lot lights haloed in gray. "They called your mom and dad," Grandpa said eventually. "Repeatedly. The hospital did everything by the book. Social worker, too. No answer. No return call. Nothing." His voice was calm. His eyes were not. "Maybe they didn't understand," I said weakly. "Maybe they thought—" He shook his head. "Hannah," he said quietly, "whatever story you're about to tell to make this hurt less, don't." Tears burned hot and humiliating at the corners of my eyes. He reached for a tissue and dabbed them away with the same gentleness he'd once used when I scraped my knee as a kid. I remembered that day suddenly. 7 years old, bike crash, blood and gravel. My father furious about the ruined jeans, my mother scolding me for being careless. Grandpa had been the one to kneel, steady, smelling of sawdust and laundry detergent, wiping dirt away. Back then, it had seemed small. Now, it rang louder than any applause I'd ever gotten for grades. "I should have called you sooner," I croaked. "I didn't want to bother you." He snorted softly. "Bother me with what? Existing?" he said. "You're my granddaughter, not an appointment." He nodded toward the packet. "The social worker brought this after surgery," he said. "Said you had a right to your records. There's a section in there that might make you angry. Or clear-eyed. Maybe both." I nodded, then winced as the movement tugged something in my hip. "We've got time," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." He proved it. He stayed through everything. Through the first night, when the phantom pain hit like lightning and I cried so hard my chest hurt. Through the morning after, when the nurse showed me the staples and bandages and I nearly blacked out just looking at where my leg ended. Through the indignities, bedpans, sponge baths, learning how to sit up without passing out. The air in the room always smelled faintly of antiseptic, sweat, and the coffee he brought in contraband travel mugs. He slept in that awful chair, flannel shirt wrinkled into new patterns,
He walked with me the first time I tried to stand on one leg, his arm a rock under my hand. "Shift your weight through the hip," the physical therapist said. "Rely on the walker, not your pride." Grandpa chuckled. "Listen to her," he said. "She knows more about balance than your father ever did." He didn't push. He didn't lecture. He simply stayed. On day 4, the social worker came back. She was a slim woman with tired eyes and a badge that swung as she moved. She smelled like peppermint gum and institutional soap. "I wanted to make sure you got these," she said, setting the packet on my tray. "Full records, including the contact log." She hesitated. "I'm sorry," she added, "about your family response, or lack of it." I managed a humorless smile. "They're very busy," I said. Her mouth tightened.
Busy doesn't excuse medical abandonment, she said softly. If a caregiver refuses to respond in a crisis, that's not just busy, it's neglect. Sometimes legally. The word abandonment hit different coming from someone who saw this every day. She tapped the packet. "There's a therapist on staff, Dr. Marshall, who can walk you through some of this," she said. What you went through wasn't just physical trauma. After she left, the room felt heavier. Grandpa nudged the packet toward me. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded, though every part of me wanted to shove it under the bed and pretend. The paper felt rough under my fingers as I opened it. Vitals, labs, surgical notes. Then halfway through, a page labeled Emergency Contact Log. My name at the top. Below, a list. 1402. Call to Daniel Reyes, father. No answer. Voicemail left. 1407. Call to Claudia Reyes, mother. No answer. Voicemail left. 1443. Second call to Daniel Reyes. No answer. 1512. Second call to Claudia Reyes. Voicemail box full. 1601. Social worker call to Daniel Reyes. No answer. 1735. Social worker call to Claudia Reyes. No answer. 1809. Patient attempted call to Daniel Reyes. Reached. Declined to participate. Can this wait? I'm busy. The last line was circled in red ink. My red. I'd begged the nurse to note his words. Some stubborn part of me had wanted proof that I hadn't imagined it. Now it stared back at me. My chest went tight. Grandpa watched my face. "You gonna keep minimizing that?" he asked quietly. "Or are you finally going to call it what it is?" I ran my thumb over the circled line until the paper smudged. "They left me," I whispered, "on a table, while they, what, ate dinner? Took selfies? Talked about how proud they are of their Navy daughter?" He didn't rush to fill the silence. He let the words sit. "They didn't come when you needed them most," he said. "That's not a miscommunication. That's abandonment." The word fit too well. I wanted to tear the page out, crumple it, throw it away. Instead, I turned it. On the next page, in a different ink, was a note from a hospital therapist. Recommend patient consider changing medical proxy from parents to another trusted adult. Given documented abandonment, urge legal consultation to protect patient from future neglect in critical events. The therapist had initialed it, LM. I closed the packet, breath shaky. "So now what?" I asked. Grandpa reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded business card. "Now," he said, "you talk to someone who understands how to turn paper like this into protection." I took the card. Marcus Hale, attorney at law, medical and family law. The card smelled faintly of ink and wallet leather. "I'm not trying to sue them," I said. "I just don't want them in charge of anything else attached to my body." "Good," he said. "You're not looking for revenge, you're looking for safety." He sat back. "You wear a uniform," he added. "You know better than most. Protecting yourself isn't cowardice. It's how you keep doing your job. The monitors beeped steadily. My missing leg throbbed with phantom fire. The packet of evidence sat between us like a loaded weapon I hadn't meant to pick up. For the first time, I thought, maybe this time I don't go to their door alone and explain myself. Maybe this time I bring the law with me. The first time I met Dr. Lena Marshall, I was sweating through a hospital t-shirt and trying not to cry in front of another stranger. Her office down the hall from my ward smelled like peppermint tea and printer ink, softer than the antiseptic sting everywhere else. A small fountain gurgled in the corner, the sound barely audible under the rhythmic beep of monitors drifting in from the corridor. She sat in a chair across from me, not behind a desk. No white coat, just a cardigan and dark slacks, hair pulled back, eyes clear. "I'm Lena," she said. "You're Hannah. And this is a lot." I snorted weakly. "That obvious?" I asked. She glanced at the folded packet in my lap, the call log visible through the thin paper. "You're holding your medical records like a grenade," she said. "I'm going to guess you just read something awful." I unfolded the page with the circled line. 6 calls, I said, and 1 text from my father. "Can this wait? I'm busy." I tried to keep my voice steady. It wobbled anyway. Lena leaned forward slightly, elbows on her knees. "I've seen families respond in all kinds of ways," she said. "Panic, overreaction, freezing. But to ignore 6 emergency calls and then dismiss your own call?" She shook her head. "That's not a misunderstanding, Hannah. That's abandonment." The word again. Heavy, accurate, hateful. "My grandfather thinks so too," I muttered. "I keep wanting to defend them. They thought it was just a complication. They assumed it would pass." "What does the record say?" she asked. I looked down at the neat black type. "Refused to participate. Can this wait? I'm busy." "It says what it says," I whispered. She nodded. "You're a communications officer," she said. "You know signals. You know the difference between static and intent." The air conditioner hummed overhead, a low, constant breath. "What do I do with this?" I asked. "Besides replay it in my head at 3 a.m. "First, we name it," she said. "Then we protect you from having to live through it again." She reached over to her side table, pulled a clipboard toward her. "Legally, your parents are your medical proxies," she said. "That means if something happens and you can't speak, they decide. They've already shown you what they do with that power." A pulse jumped in my throat. "I can change that?" I asked. "You can," she said. "Once you're out of the acute phase, you can designate a new proxy. And given what's in this log, I'd strongly advise you to speak with a lawyer. Not to sue, to build a paper trail that puts your safety first." She scribbled a name on a sticky note and slid it across the table. "Marcus Hale," she said. "He does medical and family law. He's calm, practical. He won't push you anywhere you don't want to go, but he'll tell you what's possible." The paper felt warm from her fingers, cool against mine. "What if this blows up my family?" I asked. She met my eyes. "They already lit the match," she said. "You're just deciding not to lay down in the fire." I didn't cry then. I waited until I was back in my room, staring at the call log, the fountain's murmur replaced by the steady beep of my own heart. Grandpa sat in the chair, flipping through a battered paperback, glasses on the end of his nose. "How'd it go?" he asked, marking his place. I handed him the sticky note. "She says I should talk to him," I said, "to change the proxy. Document this." He turned the note over. "Lawyer," he said. "You okay with that?" I thought of all the times I'd patched things over with my parents, smoothed, minimized,
swallowed hurt in the name of keeping peace. I think I'm more okay with a lawyer than I am with waking up next time and finding out they had the power to say no to the surgery, I said. He grunted, approval disguised as a non-committal sound. Then I'll drive you, he said, when you're ready. 2 weeks later, the hospital air gave way to something different. Old wood, dust, and citrus cleaner. Marcus Hale's office sat above a small sandwich shop downtown. The stairwell was narrow, the railing smooth from years of hands. My prosthetic clicked softly on each step. New, a little unforgiving. The socket pinched where my skin was still getting used to it. I gripped the rail with one hand and the case folder with the other, the call log visible behind the plastic. Grandpa walked just behind me, close enough to catch me if I misjudged a step, far enough to let me do it myself. You doing okay? He asked quietly.
I've had worse ladder drills, I said. Just fewer ham sandwiches in the blast radius. The law office smelled like paper, coffee, and a faint hint of lemon from the downstairs kitchen. Framed degrees lined the walls, slightly crooked. Marcus met us in the lobby. He was mid-40s, maybe, with a close-cropped beard starting to gray and a suit that looked more practical than flashy. His handshake was firm but not crushing. His eyes took in my uniform, service khakis, and the prosthetic with a quick, respectful glance. Lieutenant Reyes, he said. Mr. Reyes, come on back. His office had one big window overlooking the street. Cars rolled by below, muffled. A ceiling fan turned lazily, pushing the smell of coffee and toner around. I sat in the chair opposite his desk, my prosthetic balanced just so on the floor so it didn't squeak. Grandpa took the one beside me, arms folded loosely. Marcus didn't start with questions. He started with the packet. May I? He asked. I slid it across. He read in silence, the only sounds the rustle of pages and the faint tick of a wall clock. Vitals, labs, surgery notes, then the call log. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything yet. When he reached the circled line, "Can this wait, I'm busy?" his eyes flicked up, meeting mine. You wrote this in? He asked, tapping the red circle. I asked the nurse to record his words exactly, I said. I wanted proof that it wasn't in my head. Good instinct, he said. He finished the packet, then folded his hands on the desk. Okay, he said. Here's how I see it. He spoke in the same tone I used for briefings, calm, clear, no fluff. Legally, your parents are your designated emergency proxies, he said. Hospitals call them when you can't consent. In this case, they ignored multiple attempts and then, when you called, actively declined to participate. He tapped the log. That is, in plain terms, medical abandonment, he said. Not criminal in itself, but significant enough that any reasonable person would question their fitness to hold your power of attorney. Heat crawled up my neck, not from fever this time, but from a mix of humiliation and anger. What can I do about it? I asked. Several things, he said. 1. We formally revoke their status as your proxies and medical decision makers. 2. We designate someone you actually trust, your grandfather, a close friend, even a Navy-appointed advocate, as your new proxy. 3. We document everything in a way that anticipates future conflict. Future conflict? I echoed. You're in the military, he said. You deploy, you take risks. If something happens later, injury, coma, end-of-life decisions, your parents could reappear, claim you always wanted them in charge, and try to override whoever's actually been there for you. He leaned back slightly. What you're doing now isn't about punishing them, he said. It's about building a record that protects you from being dragged back under their control when you're most vulnerable. The words settled like weight plates in my chest. Grandpa nodded once. "What does that look like practically?" he asked. Marcus pulled a folder from his drawer, slid out a set of forms. "We draft a new advance directive and medical power of attorney," he said. "You name your grandfather primary, maybe a backup. You sign in front of witnesses. We send copies to the hospital, your base medical, anyone likely to treat you." He looked back at me. "And," he added, "if you choose, we notify your parents formally, with a letter, not a text, served properly so they can't say they never knew." I took a breath, the air tasting like dust and coffee. "Why would I started, then stopped. I knew why. Because if I didn't tell them, they'd twist the story later. They'd say I blindsided them, turned on them, exaggerated. If I handed them the truth at their front door, with a lawyer beside me and a file full of documented attempts they'd ignored, there'd be no pretending. "Okay," I said. "We notify them." Grandpa shifted, glancing at my leg. "You sure you're up for that?" he asked quietly. "Physically? Emotionally?" "I stood through an awards ceremony with a fractured ankle once because I didn't want to limp on stage," I said. "I can stand on this for 10 minutes to tell them they don't get to do this to me again." Marcus's lips twitched in what might have been admiration. "I'll draft the paperwork today," he said. "We can schedule service for next week. You'll need to sign here." He pointed to a line on the power of attorney form. The pen felt heavier than it should. I thought of the ER, cold gurney, fever, the sound of my father's voice sliding away. "Can this wait? I'm busy." I thought of Grandpa's boots in the hall, his hand around mine, the smell of coffee and flannel grounding me while they cut into my leg to keep me alive. My hand didn't shake when I signed. When we finished, Marcus stacked the documents in a neat pile and slid them into a legal envelope. The flap stayed open for now. The paper inside smelled faintly of ink and resolve. "I'll see you both on Thursday," he said. 3 p.m. at your parents' address. I'll handle the legal language. You only need to say what you're comfortable saying." As we left, the afternoon heat slammed into us like a wall. The prosthetic warmed under my jeans. The air smelled like car exhaust and bakery sugar from somewhere down the block. Grandpa walked beside me to the truck. "You all right?" he asked. "No," I said. "But I'm done pretending I am." He nodded, eyes on the sidewalk as I adjusted my stride, the prosthetic's heel clicking on a crack. "Your father's going to say you're ungrateful," he said. "Your mother will cry about family and forgiveness." "I know," I said. "You ready to hold the line?" he asked. I looked down at my leg, the place where flesh ended and metal began. "I already lost one limb to their inaction," I said. "I'm not giving them the rest of me." He smiled, small and proud. "That's my girl," he said. As we drove back to his house, legal envelope on my lap, my phone buzzed once with a new message. "Mom, how's your leg? We've been giving you space. Call when you're better." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then I put the phone face down on the envelope. They wanted space. On Thursday, standing at their perfect front door with a lawyer and the truth in my hands, I was going to show them exactly what that space cost. The day we went to my parents' house, the sky was offensively blue. No dramatic clouds, no storm buildup. Just flat, bright Florida sun baking the cul-de-sac into a postcard. Their lawn was perfect, of course. Edges crisp. Sprinklers timed to shut off minutes before we pulled up, so the grass looked freshly rinsed, but not soggy. The air smelled like cut grass, hot asphalt, and the faint chlorine drift from somebody's pool. I sat in the passenger seat of Grandpa's truck.
My prosthetic stretched out carefully so it wouldn't bump the glove compartment. The legal envelope lay across my lap, heavy with paper and meaning. "You sure you want to do this in uniform?" Grandpa asked quietly. I smoothed the front of my khaki shirt, feeling the familiar weight of my rank on the collar. "They like to brag about my Navy daughter when it suits them," I said. "They can look at what that actually looks like when the Navy daughter walks up on one leg." He grunted something that might have been agreement. Marcus Hale's sedan pulled in behind us, tires crunching softly on the HOA-approved gravel. He stepped out in his same practical suit, briefcase in hand. The neighbor's curtains twitched like synchronized swimmers. "Lieutenant," he said, nodding at me. "Mr. Reyes?" "You ready to ruin a family brunch?" I asked. "I'm here to deliver information," he said mildly. "What they do with it is up to them." We walked up the driveway.
My prosthetic made a different sound on their stamped concrete walkway than my natural foot. Slightly hollow, a quiet thud instead of a muted slap. Every step felt like a small announcement. The front door loomed ahead, spotless, wreath adjusted just so. The brass handle gleamed. I remembered being 12 and standing on this same porch, stomach knotted before report cards, hoping my grades were high enough to earn good moods instead of cold silence. Now, my stomach still knotted. The reason had changed. Marcus looked at me. "This is your show," he said. "You ring when you're ready." I knocked. A beat. Footsteps. The door swung open. My mother blinked at the three of us, me in uniform, artificial leg visible below the hem of my khakis, Grandpa in his worn flannel, Marcus with his briefcase. "Hannah," she said, voice pitching up. "You look so—" She stopped, eyes catching on the prosthetic. Her hand flew to her chest. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Your leg." I kept my hands at my sides. "It's shorter than last time you saw it," I said. "Come outside. We need to talk." Confusion flickered across her face, then annoyance. "Can't we just talk in here?" she asked. "The neighbors." "That's exactly why we're doing it here," Grandpa said, voice mild but edged. "If you care more about curtains twitching than your daughter's life, it's good to have witnesses." My father appeared behind her, polo shirt crisp, watch gleaming. "What's going on?" he asked. His eyes skimmed over my uniform, my leg, Marcus. "Are we being sued?" he snapped. "No," I said. "Not today." I stepped back enough that they had to either come outside or slam the door. They chose outside. We stood on their front stoop like some twisted family photo. Daughter in uniform, missing a limb. Grandfather steady at her side. Lawyer a few feet away. The air smelled like citrus from the potted tree by the door and the hot plastic of the doormat under my shoes. "What is this?" Dad demanded. I met his eyes. 3 weeks ago, I said. I was in the ER with a raging infection. They told me I might lose my leg, maybe more. The hospital called you, multiple times, for emergency consent. You didn't answer. He waved a hand. "We didn't know," he started. I held up the packet. "They documented every call," I said. 6 separate attempts, 2 voicemails, social worker calls, all unanswered. I flipped open to the log, the circled line. "And when I called you," I continued, "when I was shaking on that gurney, half out of my head with fever, you said, 'Can this wait? I'm busy.'" His mouth opened, shut. "I didn't realize it was that serious," he said. "You sounded like someone whose leg was about to be cut off," I said. "You hung up." Mom stepped in. "We thought you were just nervous," she said. "You always were dramatic about pain. We figured the doctors were being alarmist. We didn't want to overreact." "Overreact," I repeated, the word sour. Marcus cleared his throat gently. "For the record," he said, The hospital classified those unanswered calls and the refusal as medical abandonment in their internal notes. That's what prompted the social worker to advise Lieutenant Reyes to seek counsel. Dad swung toward him. "Who are you?" he snapped. "Marcus Hale," he said. "Ms. Reyes's attorney." "Attorney?" Mom echoed, as if it tasted worse than infection. "We are not suing you," Marcus said evenly. "This isn't about damages. It's about boundaries and safety." I closed the packet, the plastic cover crinkling. "I lost my leg," I said. "Grandpa drove through the night and signed the consent that saved me. You didn't pick up the phone. You didn't call afterward. For 3 weeks." Mom's lower lip trembled. "We were giving you space," she said weakly. "We didn't want to intrude." My laugh came out sharp. "Space," I said. "That's one word for it." I took a breath, felt the prosthetic solid under me. "This," I tapped the envelope, "is why we're here." Marcus stepped forward, holding out a second envelope. Inside, I knew, were the revocation forms and new directives. "As of today," he said, "Lieutenant Reyes is formally revoking your status as her medical proxies and emergency decision makers. She has executed a new power of attorney, an advanced directive naming her grandfather as primary." Dad stared at the envelope as if it were poisonous. "You can't just cut us out," he said. "You already did," I said quietly. "In the ER. I'm just making the paperwork match reality." "We're your parents," Mom whispered. "You can't erase that." "I'm not erasing it," I said. "I'm recognizing what it means. It means that when my life was on the line, you chose not to choose. You can live with that if you want. I won't live under it." A breeze kicked up, tugging at the edge of my uniform shirt. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. A car rolled by, slowing just a fraction when its driver saw the little tableau on the porch. "I'm not doing this to hurt you," I said. "I'm doing this to protect myself. The Navy expects me to have contingency plans. This is mine." Dad's face twisted. "So that's it?" he said. "You show up with your prosthetic and your lawyer to humiliate us?" I shook my head. "If I wanted to humiliate you," I said, "I would have invited the local news. I waited 3 weeks. You had 3 weeks to call. You didn't." I stepped back. "This isn't a conversation about whether you're sorry," I added. "It's a notification. From now on, you have no legal say over my body in an emergency. You forfeited that when you ignored the calls." Marcus extended the envelope again. "I'd strongly advise you to read this," he said. "It explains the changes and your rights going forward." Dad didn't take it. Mom did. Her hand shook. "This is so extreme," she whispered. "Families work things out. They don't bring lawyers to the front door." "Families also show up in the ER," Grandpa said quietly. "Yours didn't." He looked at them, eyes sad, not angry. "You had one job," he said. "Pick up the phone when your kid is dying. You failed it. She's allowed to respond." For a moment, nobody spoke. The porch light above us hummed faintly, even though it was bright midday. The artificial perfectness of the cul-de-sac pressed in. Trim lawns, neat cars, every house pretending everything inside it was fine. "I'm going to leave now," I said. "I have physical therapy in an hour." Dad's laugh was brittle. "Of course you do," he said. "Always busy, just like your old man." The difference was, I thought, I knew when to drop everything for the right reasons. "If you decide later that you want to talk," I said, "you can call. I won't block you. But I won't pretend this didn't happen to make you feel better. Mom's eyes filled. We'll try, she said, to fix this. I held her gaze. Fixing this doesn't mean me putting you back on my forms, I said. It means you taking responsibility for what you did. And maybe showing up before a hospital forces you to. I turned carefully, prosthetic pivoting, balance conscious. As we walked back down the path, the fake stone under my feet felt hollow in a way that had nothing to do with carbon fiber. At the truck, my hands trembled as I reached for the door handle. Grandpa put a steady palm on my back. You stood straight, he said. You said what needed saying. That's more grace than they gave you. In the rearview mirror, I saw my parents still standing in the doorway, small, suddenly, in their perfect frame. The legal envelope hung from my mother's fingers like a weight she'd never expected to have to carry. They'd always assumed I'd come back alone, explain, smooth, make it easier for them to live with themselves. Instead, I'd arrived in uniform, on a new leg, with every receipt tucked into a lawyer's briefcase. Not to burn their house down, just to lock my own door. Grandpa's house felt smaller when we got back. Not physically. The same low roof, the same single-story sprawl, the same ramp he'd built himself after some old injury made steps a nuisance. But the air inside felt condensed. Like we carried the whole weight of that front porch argument in with us. The place smelled like coffee, laundry detergent, and the faint cedar of the old chest in the hallway. Familiar. Safe. My prosthetic clicked on the hardwood in a rhythm I hadn't quite made my own yet. I made it as far as the kitchen before my hands started to shake. The legal envelope was gone now. Marcus had taken his copy. My parents had theirs. All I had left was the ghost of its weight on my palms. Grandpa set his keys in the bowl by the door, then turned to look at me. You held it together, he said quietly. You don't have to anymore. That was all it took. My breath hitched. I grabbed the edge of the counter, the laminate cool under my fingers, and bent my head. Tears hit the floor before I registered I was crying. Big, stupid, hot ones that blurred the tile into gray waves. My chest seized in little jerks, like my body had decided to cough out every swallowed feeling at once. I shouldn't feel this bad, I choked. I did the right thing. I know I did. He moved slowly, making sure I heard his steps, then put a hand between my shoulder blades. The weight was steady, not crushing. Doing the right thing doesn't come with a happiness guarantee, he said. It just means you didn't lie to yourself. I thought I'd feel angry, I said, words warping around the lump in my throat. Righteous. Something. Instead, it just feels like someone took a shovel to my chest. They did, he said. 6 times. Every time that phone rang and they didn't pick up. I pressed my forehead to my forearm. I wanted them to run out that door, I admitted. To say they were sorry before you or Marcus had to say anything. To say they were scared. That they misjudged. That they hated themselves for it. And instead, he said, they cared more about how they looked to the neighbors than how close they came to burying you. I laughed weakly, the sound breaking. Yeah, I said. That's on brand. He squeezed my shoulder once, then let go. Come on, he said. Let's sit somewhere that doesn't smell like dish soap and regret. We moved to the living room. The couch sagged in the middle in a way that made you feel held. The ceiling fan clicked overhead, pushing the late afternoon light across the room in slow arcs. Outside, through the window, I could see the porch swing, empty, moving just a hair in the breeze. I sank into the corner of the couch,
prosthetic stretched out, stump throbbing dimly, a low, nagging ache that had become background noise. Grandpa settled in his old armchair, the one with the worn arms and the indent shaped perfectly to his shoulders. "You remember when you broke your wrist?" he asked unexpectedly. "Fell off the monkey bars. 3rd grade. I sniffed. "Yeah," I said. "Mom yelled about dirt on my clothes. Dad told me to walk it off. You're the one who drove me to urgent care." "Do you remember what you said on the way there?" he asked. I shook my head. "You said, 'I don't want them to be mad, but it hurts,'" he said. "Like the two were equally dangerous." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "It's been a long time since you trusted your own pain more than their reactions," he said. "Today was the first time I've seen you put yourself first." Guilt flared, sharp. "It feels cruel," I whispered. "Standing there, telling them they can't make decisions for me anymore? Watching Mom cry? Seeing Dad look at me like I'd stabbed him?" "He's never had to see the consequences of his choices lined up in black and white before," Grandpa said. "That's not cruelty. That's reality catching up." I stared at my hands. "They're still my parents," I said. "The little girl part of me still wants something from them. Approval. A hug. I don't know."
"Something. That part of you is not stupid," he said. "She just needed someone to tell her she doesn't have to keep walking into the same wall, hoping it turns into a door." I swallowed. "I keep thinking about the call log," I said. "Those timestamps. Someone writing no answer over and over. I was lying there, half out of my head, and some nurse was doing her job while my own family put their phones on silent." "That nurse," he said, "and that social worker, and that ER doc, they're part of your family now. The kind that shows up when your fever hits a number on a chart." He nodded toward my leg. "This thing is a reminder," he said. "Not just of what you lost, of who showed up and who didn't." I rubbed the edge of the prosthetic socket absently. "I don't want to become bitter," I said. "I don't want to be the person who tells her sailors, 'Never trust anyone. Your family will leave you on the table.'" "Good," he said. "Don't." He sat back, the chair creaking. "Tell them, not all family shows up, so make sure your paperwork does," he said. "That's different." A laugh broke through my tears, small but real. "Dr. Marshall would love that," I said. "You see her again tomorrow?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "She wants to talk about expectations and grief." He nodded. "Grief isn't just for the leg," he said. "It's for the parents you thought you had." The words landed like a truth I'd been circling for days. I'd lost more than bone and skin in that OR. I'd lost the last illusion that, under the right circumstances, they'd turn into the kind of people who run toward the hospital instead of away from discomfort. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. We both looked at it. A new voicemail notification blinked. "Mom." "Do you want to listen?" Grandpa asked. I stared at the little red icon. Part of me wanted to throw the phone into the nearest body of water. Part of me wanted to soak up any scrap of apology, even if it was wrapped in excuses. "I'll listen," I said. "But not alone." He nodded. I put it on speaker and hit play. My mother's voice spilled out, slightly tinny through the phone's small speaker. "Hannah, it's Mom," she said. I don't know what to say. We didn't realize it was that bad. Your father is upset. We feel blindsided. Bringing a lawyer on our doorstep, it was humiliating. But," she paused, a little inhale. But I can see you're serious, she said. And I am sorry for not answering like we should have. I don't know how to fix this. Call when you're ready. The message ended with a soft click. The room hummed. She apologizes, Grandpa said slowly. Sort of. There's always a but, I said. Sorry, but. We didn't know, but. You embarrassed us, but. I leaned my head back against the couch. It's like they can't say the words without protecting their image at the same time, I said. People who measure their worth by appearances have a hard time with naked shame, he said. He eyed me. What do you want to do with that? He asked, nodding at the phone. Nothing right now, I said. I don't owe them a rapid response forgiveness. I barely just got myself out from under their legal shadow. Good, he said. Forgiveness is for you, not for their comfort. You can think about it on your own timeline, or not at all. The porch swing creaked outside, moved by a stronger gust. Sunlight shifted across the floor, sliding over the metal of my prosthetic, making it gleam briefly. I keep thinking, I said slowly. If Grandpa hadn't picked up, I'd be dead. Or worse. More gone than I already am. He frowned. Hey, he said. You are not less because you lost a limb. You're just redistributed. I huffed. That's not how anatomy works, I said. You know what I mean, he snapped gently. Your worth didn't shrink with your leg. If anything, it's grown because you're standing here doing the hard thing most people dodge. I rubbed my face with both hands. I want to make this mean something, I said. Not just for me. For other people who get left behind like this. I keep thinking about my junior sailors. If they woke up in an ER and nobody came? He nodded. And maybe that's your next mission, he said. Once the stump stops screaming and you're not tripping over that thing every other step. I glanced at the prosthetic. Baby steps, I said. Literally, he replied. We sat there like that for a long time, the TV off, the house quiet except for the fan and the occasional creak of old wood shifting. Eventually, my breathing slowed. The ache in my chest dulled from jagged to deep. I wasn't over it. I wasn't better. But the fact that I could sit in my grandfather's living room, leg gone, parents furious, legal papers in motion, and still feel the couch under me, the air in my lungs, the steady presence of the one family member who had always actually shown up, that felt like a kind of victory. Not the kind you get a medal for, the kind you build a life on. Tomorrow would be prosthetic training and base paperwork and another session with Dr. Marshall. Next week would be figuring out how to go back to work without pretending nothing had happened. Beyond that, I didn't know yet. But for the first time since I'd woken up on that freezing ER gurney, I felt the faint outline of a new path. Not the one my parents had paved with expectations and conditions, but one I was drawing myself. One careful step at a time. The first time I walked back onto base with my prosthetic, the hum in my chest wasn't from nerves. It was from recognition. Fluorescent lights, echoing announcements over the PA, the mixed smell of coffee, floor polish, and too many people in uniforms moving with purpose. This was a language my body remembered, even if part of it had been rewritten. The admin building's automatic doors whooshed open, and a blast of cold air hit my face. My dress khakis sat a little differently over the socket. The carbon fiber made a soft, hollow sound against the tile. Step, thud, step, thud. Heads turned, then turned back. My CO, Commander Ellis, met me outside his office. He'd been a solid presence through all of it. Emails, a hospital visit, A simple, "we've got you. Heal first, brief later." Now he watched me walk the last few feet, eyes assessing my gait the way he'd assess a new comms rig. Not for pity, for function. "Lieutenant Reyes," he said. "Good to see you vertical." "Feels good to be vertical, sir," I said. He glanced at my leg, then at my eyes. "You good to come back on light duty?" he asked. "We can ramp you up slowly." "Yes, sir," I said. "I'd rather be here than on my grandfather's couch reading op manuals backwards." He snorted. "Your eval's been updated," he said. "No hit for the surgery or the amputation. Navy's not in the habit of punishing people for infections." He hesitated, then added, "Dr. Marshall sent over a summary, with your permission. If you need to kick anything up the chain about your family situation, you let me know. We can designate a base advocate as emergency backup if needed." "I've got legal paperwork in place," I said. "My grandfather's primary now. Everything's documented." His nod was small, approving. "Good," he said. "Comms is about redundancy. So is survival." He gestured to the hallway. "Your office is still yours," he said. "We moved the heaviest gear off the bottom shelf. You can thank Petty Officer Miller for labeling everything twice." Miller popped his head out of the comms room. "Gotta keep the boss from falling on her face trying to dig out spare headsets," he said with a grin. I rolled my eyes. "We both know I'm more likely to trip over your energy drink cans," I shot back. The easy banter slid into place on top of something solid, respect that had weathered more than a deployment. Back at my desk, the shadow box I'd assembled before all this seemed to watch me. I'd added to it. In the corner, next to the tiny copy of the notary log and the old deployment coin, sat a new item. A folded copy of the ER call log page. The circled line, "Can this wait? I'm busy," peeking out just enough to be a reminder, not a wound. Below, on the shelf, my prosthetic's first training foot, scuffed, retired now, rested next to my dress uniform cover. Proof of adaptation. Proof of movement. Dr. Marshall had called it visual integration. "Your brain needs to see that this is part of your story," she'd said. "Not the whole thing." She was right. My story didn't end at the ER. It curved through physical therapy, parallel bars, mirrors, the smell of rubber mats and sweat. It wound through early morning sessions where my stump screamed and the prosthetic felt like a foreign object, and later ones where I caught myself walking across the gym and forgetting, for 3 steps, that metal was doing part of the work. Grandpa had stood by the rail the first time I did a full lap. "You're lapping me," he'd grumbled. "Show off." At his house, evenings fell into a new rhythm. Dinner at the small kitchen table, simple food, too much hot sauce. Then the porch. The swing creaked as we settled in, boards under our feet warm from the day. The air smelled like cut grass, distant grill smoke, and the ocean's salt carried farther inland by a stubborn breeze. The sun slipped down behind the line of trees, turning the sky orange, then pink, then a deeper blue. My prosthetic rested stretched out in front of me, foot bare. I'd stopped hiding it under long pants on the porch. The swing didn't judge. One evening, weeks after the doorstep confrontation, my phone buzzed with a number I recognized too well. Dad. I let it ring out. A voicemail notification popped up. I didn't listen right away. The next day, Mom called. I let that ring out too. Later, with Grandpa beside me and the swing rocking in slow arcs, I put the phone on the table and hit play. My father's voice sounded more tired than I'd ever heard it. "Hannah," he said. "It's Dad." I listened to the lawyer's letter again, and the hospital calls. I keep telling myself we didn't know, but the record says we did, or should have. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I've been replaying that "I'm busy" in my head every night. I was wrong. Completely. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here. No expectations. The message ended. Mom's voicemail followed a similar path, less polished, more tears, still too many words about how it looked, but with a new note of something like real regret beneath the image management. I sat there, the porch swing creaking, listening to the night insects hum. "What are you thinking?" Grandpa asked. "And thinking I spent most of my life afraid of losing their approval," I said. Then I almost lost my leg and maybe my life because they couldn't be bothered to answer a phone. And now I don't feel afraid of them anymore. Just sad. "That sadness isn't a command," he said. "You don't owe them a response because they're suffering. You respond if it helps you heal." I nodded. "I don't know what forgiveness looks like yet," I admitted. "But I know what protection looks like. And I'm not undoing that." He smiled, the lines around his eyes deepening. "That's all you need to know right now," he said. "The rest will sort itself out. Or it won't." We watched the sky shift another shade darker. "I've been thinking about something," I said. "Dr. Marshall runs a group for vets who had ugly family situations in the hospital. People who woke up alone, or with the wrong person making calls. I kind of want to help. Maybe talk to them, or to young sailors, about paperwork, and about not waiting until you're on a gurney to realize who actually shows up." He chuckled. "That sounds like you," he said. "Turning your own shipwreck into a chart for somebody else." "Someone should," I said. "We drill for every kind of scenario on board. Fire, flooding, collision. But we don't drill for your parents decide their dinner party is more important than your leg." "Maybe you're the one who writes that drill," he said. The idea settled in my chest. Not heavy, solid. "I like that thought," I said. "Turning this into something. A briefing, a support group, a checklist. So the next Hannah doesn't have to figure it out the hard way." The porch light flicked on automatically, washing the swing in soft yellow. I looked at my leg, at the place where flesh met metal, at the curve of the socket, at the straps holding it to me. "I used to think strength meant never needing anybody," I said. "Now I'm starting to think it might mean knowing exactly who to call when you do." Grandpa nudged my shoulder with his. "You called me," he said. "You answered," I replied. The sky darkened fully, stars pricking through. Inside, my folded uniform hung on the back of a chair. Tomorrow I'd put it on again, walk into the admin building, and keep doing my job. Eyes on the screens, headset on, making sure messages got through. But here, tonight, on this swing, I was off duty. Just a woman who'd nearly died alone, who chose to live differently. I thought about the ER, the cold sheet, the beeping. About my father's voice saying, "Can this wait? I'm busy." About my grandfather's voice saying, "I'm on my way." One sentence had nearly cost me my life. The other had helped save it. Between the two, I'd found a third. My own, standing on that front porch, saying no more. "Grandpa," I said. "Yeah?" "I think I'm proud of myself," I said carefully. "Not for losing the leg, for what I did after." He smiled, eyes bright in the dim light. "Took you long enough to see it," he said. "I've been proud since the minute you handed that call log to a lawyer, instead of back to your parents." The swing creaked as we rocked. Protection isn't betrayal. It's how you survive the people who won't show up. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk. On carbon fiber, on shaking knees, on a brand new path, to the door of the people who failed you, and tell them calmly, "You don't get to decide what happens to me anymore. I do." With the people who came when you wouldn't. If you've ever been abandoned when you needed family most, follow Channel for stories of women in uniform who turn pain into protection and walk forward on their own terms.